Hey everybody, Josh Sheridan here with Barely Legal Podcast.
They demand my alter ego, but I won't go because of you.
So today on the show, our guest is Loren Pincus. Loren Pincus is a personal injury attorney extraordinaire, sports agent of sports agents. He's a former colleague of mine. We both worked at the state attorney's office together. He has a personal injury practice now in West Chase, and we're happy to have him on the show. Welcome, Loren.
Thank you. I am very excited, a little nervous to be the first, but let's get it going.
You should be very nervous. This is high-stakes stuff here. So I was asking you earlier, you actually just came here from lunching with a judge that we both know. Is that correct?
A judge that we both worked with. You probably practice more in front of him than I do.
Yeah.
Just somebody I've known really my whole legal career. We try to get together for lunch every 6 months or so.
I was going to say, I think we've decided to not name names just to keep it mysterious, maybe entice the listener to guess who we're talking about. But
it is more mysterious this way.
What I was going to say, though, is some people surprise me when they're on the bench and other people are cut from that cloth, and your and my relationship with him are a little bit different, but I would have pegged him for a judge within the first 5 seconds of meeting him.
You know, what's interesting is like we had just talked about before we started, is your intro music of Wolfface.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it would surprise you.
Now we got to keep the
right.
singer's identity.
1,000%.
All right.
1,000%. But it would surprise you that in 2012, I was at a Wolfface concert in Vinoy Park when they opened for Bush.
Oh, wow.
With this judge. So
yeah, I'm sure he didn't put that on his application.
I don't think that's what got him appointed.
Yeah. So, do you know why his not the judge, but the singer's ID has to be kept mysterious?
Because he's one of us.
Well, I think that's partially it, but he's also got a pretty huge beef with Metallica.
I do.
Have you seen the video?
I do. I'm a Wolfface fan from long back.
I'm late to the game on it. I've been Facebook friends with him for a while, and I'd always just note that we had the same musical taste. So he reached out to me and said, "You want to grab lunch?" And I was like, "Okay, we can chat music and law and whatever." And like halfway through the lunch, he dropped on me, "By the way." And then all of a sudden, like the whole dynamic of the lunch changed. All of a sudden, I was like a 13-year-old, fanboy, like geeking out on him. And now I think he's going to take out a restraining order on me because I text him all day long. So anyway, wanted to just kind of start off with what you do, your business, all that kind of stuff, and then maybe go back a little bit, figure out how you got there, and go from there. So why don't you tell everybody what you do?
Well, primarily, like you said at the beginning, I do personal injury. I started my own practice almost getting close to 3 years now in the Tampa West Chase area, which is, I guess you'd say, almost out of your bubble a little bit. So I'm North Tampa. I live there, work there, kind of never really leave there unless I'm coming to court or coming somewhere down this way. I do a little bit of criminal defense as well. Obviously, we have that criminal background. So another colleague of ours explained to me a long time ago that working at the state attorney's office is a little bit like a doctor doing a residency. So I always looked at it like that, of you don't want to not do it because you know how. And so that's why I still do some criminal. I don't do a ton of criminal, but I definitely don't turn it away when it comes in.
Plus it keeps you sharp in the courtroom, wouldn't you say, a little bit? Correct.
And just showing your face more than anything is that they remember who you are, because if even you take a short break, a couple months, the prosecutors change, the judges switch around, and they don't know who you are, and that can affect a lot of things.
Yeah, I remember more so when I was a state attorney, but also in the private sector, you could always tell the attorneys who aren't in court that often, they don't know where to stand. They don't know if they can come past the gate there, or, they kind of stick out like a sore thumb.
I'm still like that sometimes when I'm in Tampa, for sure.
Yeah, depending on the county, for sure. Yeah.
My background is not Tampa criminal, so it's always interesting in Tampa. I still do primarily a lot of my criminals still in Pinellas County.
Now, aside from the personal injury and the criminal stuff, though, you also have a kind of another business, don't you?
I do. It's separate from the law firm. It's a sports agency. It's called Green Line Sports Management. It's kind of my, like music is for you. It's a little bit of my passion project. I have a background in baseball, and it fell into my lap a little bit about, I guess it was around 2011, 2012. My dad is a baseball coach in Pinellas County at Seminole High School. And I was helping him out there, and we had a player who got drafted pretty high. Didn't have an agent.
Was this after you passed the bar you're talking about?
Yeah, it was one of those things. Like in law school, I was in the sports law society. I've got a sports background, so I always have this like Jerry Maguire image in my head that one day it was going to happen. So I always kind of kept an eye out for it. I didn't run away from it, but this isn't something I pursued. But when he got drafted, he didn't have an agent, and I kind of asked him if he wanted one, and he said, no, I think I got this on my own. And a lot of scouts kind of tried to convince him not to have one. And I said, okay, well, let me know if you need any help. And in the meantime, I went and got licensed by the state of Florida as an agent just in case.
How hard was that? Is there a lot to that?
Not Florida. So to be licensed by the state of Florida, it's a background check and some money is really all it is. It's like any business license like you get for a law firm or anything else. They just have a Florida state athlete agent license. That's really just kind of an application.
And how does that work with representing players in other states? Or
it's a Florida specific license. I don't know really. I know every state specifically has separate rules and regulations, but it's not like you have to take a test for it or do anything specific to renew it. But the bigger sort of certification is to be certified by Major League Baseball, which is a enormous hurdle to get over.
You have that?
I do have that, which is through the grace of my clients and no real doing of my own other than picking the right clients. In order to be licensed by Major League Baseball, you have to have a player added to a 40-man roster of a Major League Baseball team designate you as their agent. So it's this big sort of
catch-22,
1,000%. So why would a player who's in the major leagues want somebody who's not certified?
But you can't get in there until you have a player who's in the major leagues.
Correct. So it takes that level of loyalty and finding that right client that's going to stick with you, because it's hard as they move up higher and higher up the ranks. More and more agents come in trying to steal your clients. I've learned the hard way how the industry works. I kind of practice that area of law and business. So the way that I do in my own practice is I do things the right way with good people. Things should turn out the right way. So unfortunately, sometimes it's a pipe dream because you've got the big guys that come in with their unlimited supply of Nikes and Oakleys and things that are very hard to turn down when you're a minor league baseball player and you have no money and someone's willing to give you money and piggyback on the deals of other clients that they have. It's very hard to turn down, and I get that. So you gotta identify those guys that are not necessarily into those things.
Well, and there's a couple things that those are inroads to a couple of conversations I wanted to have with you. But since you brought it up, that's this being the first podcast. This is kind of one of the things that I kind of want to get across to the listener and talk about with the people that are on here is, I kind of, if you're fan of mine on Facebook, or you follow me on Facebook, or we're friends on Facebook, or whatever, I post a lot of stuff about music. I talk a lot about music, and I was born in '75, so I started to become aware of music in mid '80s, and kind of my entry point with music was hardcore music, punk rock music, heavy metal music, that sort of thing. But one of the things that I always loved about punk rock, as much as the music, was kind of the ethos behind it, which was the do-it-yourself type of anti-establishment. Like, you have a dream but no money, so how do you just do it? The DIY, do-it-yourself mentality. Just don't talk about it, just do it. And so, with the practice of law, and even like you're talking about with your agency, one of the things that I kind of want to look at and ask you about is, not everybody's got these marketing dollars. Not everybody is John Morgan. Not everybody is, you name it, billboard, television commercial, all this kind of stuff. So, what's your entry point into this world? What is it that you're doing? How did you do it with the baseball? How are you doing it with personal injury? Like, you don't have the marketing dollars when you start out. You don't have the name recognition. So what's been your experience there with that sort of thing?
My experience with that, and I've worked at a firm prior to starting my own practice that was bigger than obviously what I'm doing, but they were not a billboard, bus, commercial type of firm. But the way that they did things is you treat clients right, and that client turns into their mom or dad or brother, sister or friend, and you can grow a practice that way. You would think with the number of commercials out there that there's really only 4 lawyers to choose from. It's really not. I mean, people like that personal touch, and people want to be treated like a person and not a volume number, and they want to talk to you when they get on the phone. So the clients that end up coming to me are not anybody that's ever, and I don't do a lot of advertising. So they're normally not people who say, I saw your ad on TV, or I saw your ad in the Jewish press, or whatever, the little things that I do. They're usually people that have been referred from other clients, or from, friends that know me and the way that I do business, know that that's what this person is looking for, versus, hey, call 1-800 something, and, you'll talk to a case manager and your case will be settled in 2 weeks for half of what it's worth.
Right. So, boiling that down to the point is kind of letting the work speak for itself, and the relationship that you're forming with your clients being kind of your calling card, and what, hopefully is generating future referrals.
Yeah. I would say, there's always this talk and, whatever podcasts or marketing books or things that you're looking at about conversion rates and what's coming in. I would say almost 100% of the people that come into my office hire me because they're coming to look for what I do. I think I do a good job of explaining how I do it, and, figuring out what exactly they want. Because not everybody comes in, wants $1 million. They want their car fixed. They want to feel better. They want to, stop getting so many things in the mail. That's not the same as somebody who thinks they're going to retire to the Caribbean off a fender bender.
Right.
So I do a good job of setting expectations from the time you walk in the door to the time that you are hopefully giving me a handshake or a hug and everybody's happy. Obviously not 100% of cases end up that way, but if you set those expectations, even when it doesn't end up exactly, we're not going to be light years away from what I said we were going to do at the very beginning.
Now, how did you end up with personal injury when you went to the state attorney? Well, let's go back a little bit further. So, one thing before I forget it. Well, there's 2 things before I want to talk a little bit about your faith and how that plays into, your profession and that sort of thing. Because, as you know, I've recently learned that I'm 10% Jewish.
Right,
so
right. Well, that's part of the reason I agreed to come here.
I know,
I only do Jewish podcasts.
Yeah, so this is our meeting for the month. But the other thing, real quick, just before the name of the Green Line, you told that story before, and I thought that was a cool story about how you came up with the name of the sports agency.
So I went to law school in Boston, and the train line that I took to law school, and also I started dating my wife when I was in law school, and I lived right downtown. She lived out closer to Boston College, which in reality is not very far away.
Sure.
But in the winter, and there's only one line that goes out to where she lived, and it's the Green Line.
Yeah.
And it literally, because it goes through Boston University and Emerson and probably 4 different college stops before you get to where she lived, it took forever to get there. And so I spent a lot of time on the Green Line, a lot of time, this was before podcasts existed probably. So I guess I was probably just listening to music, but, writing things down, thinking about my legal future as I'm in law school, not knowing. I didn't go to law school thinking I was going to ever be a lawyer. I went to law school because I thought it was a better idea than business school.
Was that after baseball, kind of that ship sailed for you?
Well, yeah. So ironically, and I tell the story kind of when I speak at Eckerd College probably once a semester, and it's kind of about the journey to where you got to. And really kind of September 11th comes a lot up in my journey because...
So how old are you?
I just turned 40.
So you were born in what?
79.
79. Okay. So September 11th, how old were you?
I just graduated college. So it's this pivotal point in my life where I don't know what the heck I'm doing. At that point in time, I only wanted to be a baseball player.
Did you ever do minor leagues, or was college the...
So I played in college.
Where'd you play?
Eckerd College.
Okay.
In St. Pete. My whole sort of life is in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Is that where you were born?
No, I was. My dad was in the Navy. I was born on Parris Island, actually.
Oh, really?
In Beaufort, South Carolina. But didn't live there very long, and we moved actually to the other coast of Florida. And when you start getting into faith, that's kind of what brought us to the west coast of Florida. I grew up in Fort Pierce, Florida, where we were the only Jewish family under 80 years old there. So it legitimately, my dad, who's not a rabbi and not a super religious guy, taught Sunday school because nobody else could, and it was really like to me. And so my whole family was on this coast, and we moved over here So I went to middle school here, went to high school here, ended up at Eckerd College, sort of at the very last second of my senior year. I grew up in St. Pete, didn't even know it existed until the coach came to a game my senior year, summer of my senior year, and switched at the last second from a community college, actually, which horrifies my wife that I almost went to community college.
Where'd she go to college?
Boston College.
Oh, okay.
So she's very much a school snob.
Yeah.
So, so I went through college playing. I could throw very hard. That's about.
Were you a pitcher?
I was actually a little bit of a utility. I played third base and first base, a little bit outfield. I had one tool, which was I can throw hard.
Okay.
I can't run fast. And when I was a position player, I could hit home runs or strike out. So I really had one tool, and it was power. So towards my senior year, I started pitching, and I could throw very hard, which at that time,
accurate or just hard?
No, accurate. But it was one pitch. I couldn't throw curveballs. I couldn't do anything else other than throw hard.
Sure.
Which is half the battle, I guess, sometimes. And so I had a couple shots to play professionally, actually with the Cardinals, where I know you have some family experience with.
That's right, yeah.
And ironically, so my senior year, after my senior year, I was supposed to go backpacking in Europe with my best friend.
Okay.
I met with a area scout for the Cardinals, and he kind of was giving me a talk, trying to talk me out of playing minor league baseball, how terrible it is. You don't get paid any money. You're going to be living in hotels. You're going to be on buses. And I just kind of yes-sirred him. And I said, well, if you're going to sign, I'm supposed to go to Europe. I need to know, are you going to sign me or not?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, we got a couple other things have to happen before that. A couple other dominoes need to fall. And I was like, well, I'm going to go to Europe. And if you want to sign me, I will fly back in a second. And I'm pretty sure that decision there told the guy, this guy's not serious. In retrospect, that's the way I think about it.
How pivotal of a moment is that in your mind? Like, do you think that kind of changed your life's course?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. Because, I think about it is at that time in my life, I should have told him, all I ever want to do is eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on a bus in some crappy city in the middle of America playing baseball. But I didn't say that. I just kind of said, yep, yes, sir, yes, sir. All right, I'm going to go to Europe. If you need me, I'll be back. I'll be on a plane. And I'm pretty sure that was it.
It's funny because I do that to myself too. And I go back and forth in my mind about the weight of moments in my life. Like I can obsess over a conversation that I had or something that I said or something that I didn't say, whether it's with my wife or, my kids. Like I'm 99% sure at any given moment, I'm destroying my kid's life just by, how I gave them something, candy that they shouldn't have had, or I bought them something and I should have said no. Right. And I know that's kind of apples and oranges what you're talking about, but it's funny. And I wonder how true it is. And maybe it's a case by case situation, but you kind of, you see these parts of your life as like, oh my God. And I wonder how true that is.
Right.
Like,
it is. I mean, I never thought about it at the time. It has taken a long time to get back to it. And the scout never told me this is why we didn't sign you, but I guarantee you it was a sign that, hey, this guy's going to go to Europe instead of waiting for my phone call.
Do you think where you're at now, that kind of informs your view of how that was back then? I mean,
yeah, 100%.
Because that's kind of the world you're dealing in now.
100%. I always tell the amateur athletes that I advise. I also, in the communication with your family member as well, I said the same thing in tryouts he was going to. I was like, these people need to know how important this is to you.
You put it all on the field, leave it all on the line.
Do not assume that they assume just by you showing up that this is all you ever wanted to do. You have to verbalize it to them. So yeah, I do that. So then after I came back from Europe, baseball, I still hung on for another year of training and stuff like that.
You played for the same team as him at some point.
Yes.
It was like up in Maryland
or
something like that?
Summer league. He played in Newport, Rhode Island, which is probably the best summer of my life. I think if you ask him, it might have been one of the best summers of his life, just because the city, the team, the owner of the team went to Eckerd College, so we have this connection as well. But he's got a very good connection with Vanderbilt now. It was not. The team is now getting guys from Vanderbilt is nothing like when I played. When I played there, I was playing with like some construction workers and part-time guys. Now it's a legitimate college team.
It's a what do they call it? Not pass through, but fresh. I don't know. They always talk about in MMA, like this is like Nate Diaz or Nick Diaz. You got to fight that guy before you have a shot at the belt. So is that one of those teams you got to play on before you
It
kinda
was when I was
when you're
playing.
doing it, yeah.
Now it's a little bit more glamorous. So I like to say that's where I played, but it was very different when I played there.
Yeah, yeah. So, how many players do you have currently that you represent?
So I keep my client base very small. So I turn away more clients than I take just because of the way this business works. I need to be able to focus solely on, these guys, their needs, need to be able to, you could go out and get 1 million clients.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this is kind of a long way of saying I don't have that many clients, but because I want to.
Well, I mean, I'm just from an outsider perspective, I'm looking at it. You got to do that. You got to have your personal injury business.
Right.
You got to be a husband to your wife. You got to be a father to your, kids, and then somewhere in there, you got to take care of yourself.
Right. It is hard to do it all, and I'm very involved as a parent, and I coach all my kids' teams, and it's hard. It's definitely hard to do it all, but and that's another reason why I keep it small, baseball wise. Is number one, you got to build that connection. So it has to be. It can't be, hey, I'm catching a ride on your coattails if you make it, and it can't be, hey, I'm gonna have you represent me until some bigger agent or agency calls me, and then I'm going to move on to this one. So it's hard to even figure that out, because some players will tell you that to your face at the very beginning of, hey, no, you're not a stepping stone. We're together till the end. And then when the spotlight is on, and they get a phone call, they get starstruck by some of the guys they see on TV and who their friends are represented by. And so you've got to have those guys that can resist that, because you can't stop it.
You started to tell a story, and I think I took you down another path, but about September 11th,
right,
and what part that played in kind of your trajectory.
Right. So we got into the baseball talk. So when I was done trying to be a baseball player, I had to figure out what the hell I was going to do with life. My dad was a dentist, owned a practice, and I was pre-med for about the first year of college. And I decided I want to play baseball more than I wanted to be a doctor. So I switched my major to something less intensive, no labs. And so I thought about going back to getting some of those prerequisites done and going to dental school. I shadowed my dad in his office one day, and we were done. And he said, listen, he's like, if I could do this all over again, I would go to law school. He's like, you don't want to be a dentist. I know you've got some dentists in your family as well.
I can go on and on about why you don't want to be a
Right.
dentist. I mean, they're amazing dentists and orthodontists, don't get me wrong, but I see the everything that goes into it, and it's by no means greener grass with that world.
And this is a father-son reality talk where he says, people don't like to come see you. You hurt them, then you charge them a lot of money, and they're never happy at the end. And he
become a lawyer.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out the logic there.
Here comes the logic. Is he basically said the difference between a good day and a bad day for me is $1,000. A filling here or something like that. If you're a lawyer, your entire world and law firm and business and life can change with one phone call.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that really kind of opened my eyes. I'd never wanted to be a lawyer. I hated public speaking, never did any public speaking. And so basically at that time I graduated with a business degree. I thought when you have a business degree.
Did you get a business degree?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I thought that meant you had to be on Wall Street.
Right. Yeah.
So I have some family in New York who set up a series of job interviews in Wall Street and financial places. My flight to New York City to LaGuardia Airport left Tampa at 9:00 on September 11th.
Oh, wow.
So my flight is boarding as the first plane hits. This is before smartphones. I don't know nobody knows what's going on. The plane is still boarding. I call my mom and she calls my aunt and they're like, nobody knows what's going on. And my mom says, it's kind of up to you. And I was like, I don't feel right. I'm not getting on this plane. I went back, got my refund. And I look back, I'm sure it didn't happen this way, but I picture the woman handing me my money back for my flight, and I see the board of all the flights get canceled, and everybody knows what's going on. So obviously that led to, you're never getting a job in the financial industry ever. So I had to figure out what I was doing, and that's what led to that law school conversation, and that's what led to law school.
So September 11th happened so that you would go to law school.
So that I would sit right here today.
God works in mysterious ways.
It's crazy.
So that gets you to law school. What gets you to the state attorney's office?
Well, so we'll focus on law school real quick. So I didn't really want to go to law school. I wanted to get out of St. Petersburg, Florida. Right. So I didn't apply to Stetson, even though Stetson is a great school and a very well-respected, one of the top trial schools in the country, all that kind of stuff. In my backyard, I just had to get out of St. Pete, Florida. So I didn't apply. I don't think I applied to any schools in Florida. I just chose cities I wanted to live in. And that summer that we talked about and playing in Newport, Rhode Island, I went into Boston a bunch when I was there. I just fell in love with Boston.
Yeah.
So I said, I want to go to Boston. So I applied to every school in Boston. And so at that time, shortly after September 11th, everybody was applying to law school. So I was on every waiting list in America. New England School of Law was about the first school that accepted me right out without putting me on a waiting list. So I was in. Not the best financial decision I've ever made in my life, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Oh my God, Boston was a dream. So I think it was my junior or senior year of college. I went to UCF. Goodwill Hunting came out, and that was the dream. I just wanted to be Goodwill Hunting. I wanted to be up in Boston, hanging out with my friends at the bars. Boston was the dream for me. So I think I actually applied to some schools up there, but I don't think I had the grades that you did. So Stetson became, one of the few that would let me.
Well, you did all right. Stetson's a good school. Yeah. So then, Boston is a city that has.
Plus, I'm Irish.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that gets into where I'm going next.
Yeah.
Boston is a city that has about 8 law schools in this small city, and people think of Boston like New York. Boston is a tiny city.
Yeah.
And so there's 6 to 8 law schools in that city, one of which is Harvard. So unless you went to Harvard or you were at the top of your class in one of these schools, or you're old school Irish and you're from Boston, from Southie, you're not getting a job anywhere.
Right.
So I didn't know anybody there. I was not top of my class type of thing. So all my connections were back here. So I kind of told my girlfriend, who was now my wife at the time, that, hey, I got to go back to Florida. Somehow she decided to come back here with me. And, my connections are here. Actually, the firm that I ultimately went to after the state attorney's office, one of the senior partners there was an old family friend who had also came up at the state attorney's office in Pinellas, and he got me the interview. Mike Boyle, who I think we both know as well.
Oh, really?
So Boyle went to the same law school as me.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So Boyle put in a word for me after my interview, and the rest is history.
Boyle's a one of a kind. I was just for some reason, all of a sudden, like a lot of car discussions have come up in my life. So he's like my little side guy that I can text and ask him. Got like 5 Camaros or something like
Dodge
that.
Viper.
So that's what got you to the state attorney's office?
It is. So I similar to picking law schools, I did not think I passed the Florida bar. So I had applied to, I think, every public defender's office, every state attorney's office in this area. Pinellas County and Bruce Bartlett was the first interview where they said, even if you didn't pass the bar, we'll keep you on for X period of months as whatever certified intern that you are.
Right.
And so I said, I'm in, because I thought I'd be taking the bar again. And miraculously, I passed the bar. But
why did you think that? Are you that type of person that kind of always thinks you didn't make the grade? Or
I just have never put that much time and effort into anything and been so unsure. It's not like you walked out and I felt like, I'd never spent that much time on anything. You would think if you spent that much time on something that you would feel good. Like, I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for months and years now.
Right.
So I walked out of there thinking I just wasted 3.5 years of my life.
Yeah.
So that was really, like, I at that time, I really kind of wanted to be a public defender. I don't know why. And the only reason I accepted that job was because they agreed to hire me before the bar results, or regardless of the bar results.
So then how did you get to the PI world?
So there was another bizarre period in the world of, the 2008 where the real estate bubble popped and the economy was not good and people were not hiring. And so, at the state attorney's office in Pinellas County, you have a 3-year commitment. A lot of the people who came before me and after me sign up for those 3 years and they're out. And that's what I went in with, that mentality of, all right, 3 years and I'm out.
You did like 5 or?
I did.
Yeah.
So 2008-ish was not a good time to get a job. And so I didn't want to leave just to leave.
Right.
As you know, when you get up, at that point, I'm in felony. I'm pretty senior in my felony division. I'm doing good stuff.
Did you get to do any murders while you were there?
So I'm doing great stuff. I feel good at the end of the day of my job. I've got my schedule down. I know the cops. I know, everything was great. So I'm like, I'm not going to leave just to leave. The health insurance was great. We had my daughter at that time for $250 from the moment she was pregnant to the time we left the hospital for $250. So that was a big deal as well. But yeah, so I I had one murder case that I did not want to leave that office until I was done.
This is what happens all the time, and it's so funny because, you know, and running this practice at various points, I've interviewed people for jobs, and when they come from the state attorney's office, especially, there's always that one case that like is dictating their next 2
Right.
years. Like, if they plea out tomorrow, I'm good next month, or we're going to trial 2 years from now, and
Right.
we can have another conversation then.
Well, fortunately, that case, something similar happened where we went in for a pretrial and public defender conflicted off the case, and they reset a pretrial for 11 months later. And so I had been so involved with the victim's family at that point that I just didn't feel like I didn't want to just hand it off. So I wanted to see that one through, which I did. I also wanted to not leave there before I could say that I did everything. So I did a couple grand juries. I did a handful of murder cases as well. So, you know, that's what brought me to, and then that job opportunity came up where they agreed. The reason I took it is they wanted to teach as much as I wanted to learn. So
that's where you cut your teeth on PI.
I knew nothing about PI. I knew nothing about civil. I knew nothing about, you know, civil depositions. They let me do everything. They let me meet new clients from the moment they walked in the door. I did a number of trials there. So I did.
That's what I was going to ask. You did get the chance to do trials, which I mean is invaluable because, you know, as a state attorney, you can do trials all day long.
Right.
You can either first chair, second chair. I mean, when I was there, my wife did ordinance violations. And so Friday afternoons, we'd go down in front of Sunny M and we'd have Luke LaRoe or Curland, the dad, and
doing stripper trials all
stripper
day.
trials.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, a little bit different from a personal injury case, but you get comfortable in a courtroom. But then when you get out and do the PI, you know, one of the biggest kind of talking points you hear in PI is, you know, have you been to trial? Who's been to trial? Trial experience, all this stuff. It is so difficult to get a trial.
Right.
You know, it is. It's not that, you know, we want trials. Probably a whole other podcast we can discuss why a PI case goes to trial and what that means.
Right.
You know, that's probably a conversation for another day. But
it's just so risky across the board for everybody involved. So to actually get one there, cards have to fall just right, and it's hard.
Would you agree that it's not always the case, but if you're going to trial, it's not necessarily a good case?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
It's always the ones that end up in an actual trial have something wrong with it. That's probably a coin flip if you can overcome that issue.
Yeah. So, you know, this is something that I'm definitely going to want you back to talk about, but, you know, that I see a lot come up when you look at the marketing and the commercials for PI is who's been to trial is always a thing. And I'm like, you're looking at the wrong thing. You know, I've been obsessed with the movie Moneyball lately. And again, that's probably a third podcast we could do with each other, but that philosophy I have recently found has had so many applications in my life about what metrics we use to talk about what we do or what metrics we use to sell ourselves to the community, what matters to the consumer versus from a practitioner standpoint, what actually matters. And it's very rarely, you know, the same thing. Yeah. You know, I get a lot of flack because I have a beard, my hair is long, and I don't like wearing suits and I don't drive these cars around, and that matters to a lot of consumers. But I'll tell you, it doesn't mean anything.
Results matter.
And another thing too is I see a lot with board certification. I've been in trial with a number of board certified attorneys, and I tell you what, they passed the test, but it doesn't mean much in the courtroom.
No,
so
well, it's like my bar experience. I'm not signing up. It doesn't mean that I couldn't go get board certified. It is a pain in the butt to study and take it. And I'm running multiple businesses and have a family. It doesn't mean that you're less qualified. It just means you got some better priorities, I think, too, sometimes.
So then you said you left that the firm that you worked for 3 years ago?
Yeah, just about 3 years ago.
So you've been doing your thing now for 3 years. What's been your biggest challenge in running the practice?
My biggest challenge, because I run a truly solo practice. So
do you have any staff at all?
I don't.
Okay.
I lick stamps. Well, that could change as of next week. But as to this point in my practice, I lick stamps. I write all my letters. I've litigated cases by myself. So I have a wife who is very much, she's very anti-debt, and she's very much about do it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, we actually had this conversation last night. That's like, you are going to remember these 3 years. You know, there's no doubt you're going to be successful. You're going to remember these 3 years. As I said, as I manually fixed my printer in my office yesterday, she's like, you're going to remember doing that when, you know, you're hiring somebody to do those things. So it is, as cheesy as it is, it's really grinding right now of doing it. You know, I try to keep overhead low, but you know, you also need to spend money to take on these good cases and these bigger cases. So, you know, really my biggest challenge is trying to do everything.
Yeah.
Which I know from everything you read and everything that you do is it's not the smart thing, and that you need to focus on the things that you do well and get other people to do those things. So that's the plan, has always sort of been this third year. So I'm going into my third year is to grow.
That's kind of the next phase 2.
Correct. So I survived. I actually had 2 very successful years, which, you know, did not expect. I expected to be taking loans out and, you know, downsizing our house and selling cars. And quite frankly, I haven't, because I think partly
it's never
because,
as bad as you fear that it will be.
Right.
That's kind of what my experience has been.
well, you have enough contacts, and I don't, you know, I'm as busy as I want to be right now.
Right.
Sure, I would love to have my office overflowing with files, but I'm as busy. Like, I like all of my clients. I have the, you know, I'm not.
You have good quality cases.
Correct.
That's something I, you know, with some people that I see in the community with PI, you know, they'll tell me, I have 200 cases, I have 300 cases. And it's like, well, let's talk about those 200 cases.
Right.
Or those, I mean, what are they? Like, are they valid injuries with
Right.
people who need your help? Or is
Right.
it like someone who, you know, tripped?
Well, one of the things I learned at the other firm was, and they did an excellent job of weeding out those cases.
Yeah.
They were in an area, they were in, you know, mid to South St. Pete, where they had a number of people come in the door with cases that were like, I don't think this is legitimate. And they did a good job of saying, thanks, but no thanks. Here's some people down the road, or here's some other people that would take this case.
Because that's a stigma that we fight as injury attorneys, especially, you know, the ambulance chaser thing, you know, that's always something we're working against. So you mention it, but, you know, you vet these cases at the outset. You're not taking these, you know, ambulance chaser type cases,
Right.
because, I mean, your reputation, not just to the community, but to the opposing counsel, to the insurance adjusters, to the insurance companies, to the judges,
Right.
to, you know, everybody, and just being able to look yourself in a mirror. I mean, these are the types of things that, you know, I think we get painted with that brush, and obviously there's bad apples out there, but by and large, I don't think that that's the case with the
Right.
greater majority of the practice.
Well, it's a lot that you have to overcome, because every insurance company treats you like an ambulance
Oh,
chaser,
sure.
and treats your client like they're a fraud. So a lot of what I do, because I would say 99.99% of my clients are great people, and people that I would love to put on a witness stand because people are going to like them.
Right.
Is I like to try to get them to this insurance adjuster somehow, whether
Yeah.
it's a pre-suit mediation of, let's not spend the money of litigation, because you're going to meet this person. You're going to say, holy crap, that's not the person I want in a courtroom, because a jury is going to believe that this person's hurt. They're going to believe their backstory, and that, quite frankly, they are hurt.
Right.
So that's a big deal at the end of the day. And it's a very hard thing to overcome in this industry, that you're not that ambulance chaser and your client is not a fraud.
Right. Right. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, you mentioned kind of entering phase 2. Do you have greater aspirations? I mean, are you going to be a judge? Are you going to run for politics? Are you going to, what's the next 5-10 years hold for you?
I think my aspirations are to kind of do a little bit of what you're doing. I want to grow. I want to own a building. I want to, you know, I want my practice to grow, and
Yeah.
I want to stay in this industry. You know, part of the reason I continue to do this is I think it goes back to my prosecutor roots of, I like to help people. At the end
Yeah.
of the day, you like to feel good that, hey, that person, you know, got to the right doctor because of me, or got their car fixed and got paid what their car was worth because of me. So I don't really foresee going anywhere. I don't think I would want to be a judge. I've tossed it around. Actually, the judge that I had lunch with today is he was the one I wanted to start a practice with back in the day, just because
you guys were tight. I mean, I remember running into you out
Right.
on the street. Yeah.
We did all of our trials together, and I really thought we were gonna do that. And you know, he's always had, you know, that lean, and it's awesome, and he's a great judge. And I kind of think of it every now and then, but you know, I really like what I'm doing now. I like the flexibility. I like the control over my day, which
Yeah.
you don't have as a judge. This is your calendar. This is your trial.
Yeah, you're not going
stuck
anywhere
with it.
until you're done with
Right.
it. Yeah.
So the control over my life is really my favorite thing right now, especially the age of my kids and being able to do that stuff. So the only thing that I envision in the next, hopefully 5 years is growth.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. The time went by quicker than I expected it to.
Did.
And hopefully you'll come back and talk with us again.
I would love to.
All right. Thanks, Loren.
I appreciate it.